What's going on, everybody? Aidan from Birds vs. Boys here, back with another YouTube video because the Eagles are back as well. OTAs are underway. They started yesterday at the time of recording this, and there's already some news for us to talk about, some headlines that the young guys are making. So we will dive into that today. And let's look way ahead from day one of OTAs all the way to the season, and we're going to rank our top 5 toughest games of the upcoming year for the Eagles. They do have that number one strength of schedule. I'm still not buying that whole strength of schedule thing, but there are a lot of tough games this year. So we'll go through that and rank our toughest 5 to 1. Before we get into any of that, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube page. As we've mentioned in a few of our previous videos, since the draft, we've been seeing a huge uptick in subscribers, which is great. So make sure if you're new to subscribe as well, so you know when we're releasing this content. I just did a video on DeAndre Hopkins and his possible, if the Eagles are a suitor for him, and then Kevin is going to do one for the Cowboys as well, and we'll be back with a regular show with both of us. But let's get into the Eagles news, and let's start here. I'm so glad we get to start here because everybody who knows my brand knows how much I love these Georgia kids, and they are already making headlines. This is such an off-season article or title or whatever you want to call it, but it is hilarious. According to Dave Spadaro, the Eagles insider, at rookie OTAs, which occurred a week ago, Jalen Carter reportedly broke a blocking sweat in the first weekend there at rookie camp. So that is just hilarious to me. This guy, just say what you want about Jalen Carter. He really loves impact. And we talked about it on our regular show with Kevin and I, how it's tough to buy into these off-season headlines, and everyone's in the best shape of their life and everyone's made massive strides. Jordan Davis has made massive strides. What does that mean when you're just putting a helmet on, not full pads, and you're practicing and not going full go, full contact? Well, I say all that, and then I hear about Jalen Carter just blowing up with blocking sleds. I'm like, oh man, I can't wait. I'm so excited. I think he's going to be so good, and I can see when you hear these stories why they compared him to Fletcher Cox, because it's that like country strong, where it's not like going to the Arnold bodybuilding strong. It's just country strong, just blow everything up, be more ferocious than your offensive line opponent in front of you, and just use brute strength on every rep, every down, and just create havoc with that big country strength that you have. That's what Jalen Carter's got, and you can just see it already at rookie OTAs, which is pretty impressive. And then Nolan Smith, his counterpart, who was also drafted by the Eagles in the first round, was on the Greenlight podcast with Chris Long. Chris Long's content this past week has been awesome. He was in Philly, interviewed Nolan Smith live, and his stories were incredible. I think what is going to stick out to Eagles fans the most is asking Nolan Smith, coming from Georgia, coming from the South, will you worry about playing in the cold? And he was like, flat out, no. As long as I get to hit a motherfucker, was his exact quote. So I'm all in on that. That's a great quote. This guy is going to be a quote machine. He had some quotes about Stetson Bennett as well that went viral from that podcast clip. He is hilarious. He's a big personality. You can tell he's going to be well liked in the locker room, just like he was at Georgia. I need him to be good because he's going to be a fan favorite here, and will probably the heir apparent to Brandon Graham if he is productive on the field, because he's a personality off the field. This kid is awesome. These two, I want nothing but the best for them. So that's it, rookie OTAs, and then we are in full swing. Day one of regular OTAs for the Eagles. So there's going to be a lot more to come with position battles, how everybody's looking. Again, I'm sure everyone will look great and everyone will have massive strides. So we'll see. Now, the upcoming season, like we talked about, let's transition there. Way too soon to look ahead, but kind of hilarious. At one day of OTAs, and I'm already ranking the games that I think that they're going to be the toughest for them. It might be possible losses. That's just what you do when the Phillies are struggling and the Sixers season's over. I get one day of Eagles, and I'm into this. So here's my top 5 toughest games for the Eagles this coming season. At 5, I have at home versus Miami. This is an interesting one. There's not a lot of home games on the list. The road games are against some tough opponents, and they are some better home opponents than Miami on paper. You're talking San Francisco, things like that. Here's the reason Miami's on the list. We don't fully know what Miami is, but they want to be this track meet team, and they are a finesse team that does well in the early season. As it gets colder, not in Miami, other places there in the AFC East, like Buffalo and New England, as it gets colder, they seem to wind down. The physical toll of the NFL season seems to, bear its brute and its strength on them, and they kind of fall apart. And part of that is bad injury luck with Tua, but still, you catch them early enough in the season. If you remember that game against the Ravens last year where they came all the way back and Tua had 5 touchdowns and Tyreek Hill had 200 yards, that's the style that they would like to play. That's geared towards September and October. All right, you're getting them on October 22nd. So it's a little bit before halfway through the season there where it's still kind of warm out and it's still fall and you're still not a full half into the season. That's like the time you don't want to play the Dolphins. You kind of want to play them December 22nd at home, and then you feel a little bit better. Get those uniforms of the teal and the white, put them in the snow in December, and it's a whole different story when you play them. At 4, I have at home versus Dallas. Obviously, if to specify, we'll play them twice. This is just the week before the bye week. It is in week 9. You're about halfway through the season. Would you be limping in? There's some possible injury situations there because you've already played half your season and you're right on that bye week. So are you going to be crawling in? Do you have one last ditch effort before you hit that bye week there? So that's why I put the Dallas home game there at 4. So 2 home games so far, but you can see a little extra detail as to why home games would be on the list. I will say those are the only 2 home games. Everything else will be on the road. At 3, we're going right back at Dallas. So this is the week after playing San Francisco and Buffalo at home. So just schedule-wise, kind of a tough to play 2 playoff opponents from a year before. We expect both of those teams to be really good this year. You play both of those, and then you have to go on the road on Sunday Night Football and play your biggest rival. That's just a tough spot to be in, especially on the road. It's just that gauntlet right there between like weeks 11 through 14. It's really going to be the litmus test for the Eagles this year, and that's just one of those games going on the road to Dallas. At 2, I have Kansas City. At Kansas City, this is pretty easy. They're the best team on the schedule. They beat you in the Super Bowl. That's about it. Do I need a further explanation as to why they would be on this list and why they would be as high as 2? I'm sure a lot of people are expecting them to be up at 1, considering they are the Super Bowl champions and they are the best team in the league. But when you hear number 1 and all the detail that goes into this one, you'll see why I think this game will be even tougher than playing the defending Super Bowl champions and Super Bowl MVP, Patrick Mahomes, on the road at Arrowhead. At 1, I have at Seattle. And you're thinking, well, they had the worst record of any team on this list. They were the 7 seed in the playoffs. How did they make it onto your list? Okay. The Eagles fans, let's be honest with ourselves here. We'll get into the Seahawks portion of this, but let's look at the schedule. You go Buffalo, San Fran, at Dallas, which we just talked about on Sunday Night Football, and then you go back on the road after being at Dallas on Sunday Night Football, go across the country the following week to play at Seattle. That alone, travel-wise, is tough. It screams trap game right there as it is. They haven't beaten the Seahawks since 2008, and they haven't won on the road in Seattle since 2002. This is always a tough game for them. They just struggle no matter what every time that they go to Seattle. And this time, this season, Seattle is at the end of their gauntlet with Kansas City, with Buffalo, with San Francisco, and with Dallas. They get out of that bye week, they go through Murderer's Row, and at the end, they have the Seattle game. I think the tank will be on E at that time. If you split, if you go 3-1, you're feeling great. And then all of a sudden, whoops, all right, we had a pretty competitive team against Seattle. We're on the road, and it's like, all right, let's just get through this game. Everything will go wrong, and then we'll get back home. We'll play Arizona. We'll play New York. Let's wrap this up, and hopefully let's get into the playoffs. But this just screams scheduled loss on the road at Seattle after all of those games. So that's my top 5. I've got home versus Miami, home versus Dallas, at Dallas at 3, at Kansas City at 2, and number 1, at Seattle. Can we beat the Seahawks for the first time in 15 years? We'll see. All right, so we'll be back with more OTAs news. Hopefully, we've got more best shape of their life guys to talk about. I'm sure that we will. Again, make sure to subscribe. We have constant content coming out. Make sure to like this video. Have it pop up on your feed. Just rotate through. I'll be back with another show. Kevin is doing one. Could the Cowboys get DeAndre Hopkins? We will see, and we'll be back with a regular show. We will talk to you soon.
Chris Hansen here, and I'm going to need you all to take a seat right over there and check out Birds versus Boys.
I think you're completely right here, and I hate it.
Yep. Hey, idiots. Stop doing dumb things. I got 2 phones. Upset alert. Upset alert. I might go insane.
I think you're already there.
There's no hope. Hope is gone. If this was an AFC North podcast, we'd be done in 15 minutes. Bob Hope. I'm going to drink
bleach.
That it?
Be the team you promised me you were going to be this year!
This is the Consciously Hopeful podcast.
I'll be watching.